Multi-dimensional arrays are our ability to store information in a 2D environment. It's going to have a certain length going across. It's going to have a certain width. All it is doing is essentially creating tables that have identification column numbers to them. So here's an example in Excel. Let's say we're trying to make a chessboard, which is an 8 by 8 piece. So I'm going to go here. I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Just to show that this would be our actual storage area. And each one would have its own special, for lack of a better term, cell number. Just like everything else, our columns going across start at 0 and increase until they reach their end. And the same with our rows going down. Each one will be read by its own for loop. The row for loop will always be the outer for loop, and the column for loop will always be the inner for loop. And that's to make printing the information simpler. So we'd say start with the outside row, read through all across. Progress to the next row, read all across. Just like a book, left and right, up and down. To declare a multi-dimensional array, instead of using one set of brackets, we're going to use two sets of brackets. So here we go. I'm going to just show you the basic behind creating the two-dimensional array. I'm going to create it with integers, so there's one set of brackets, two set of brackets, and I'm going to call it my usual numbers, equals new integer, and we're going to make it, we'll stick with our example, the 8 by 8 array. So, right now, of course, it has nothing in it. So we need to put stuff in it. So, going to run our first for loop. Now this is where for loops have a little twist to it, but it's only in the second for loop where the twist exists. Integer I equals 0. I becomes less than numbers.length and I plus plus. Ends I for loop, which reads each row. Actually, we're going to change that to which controls each row. Then we're going to do the J loop. So for is on the outside. Int J equals 0, because it's still going to start. If we take a look at our example, we still want it to start at the 0 position. If we want to neglect this first information, we can skip that, but we don't want to do that. J becomes less than numbers of I dot length. So you're able to throw that I in here inside brackets to limit it to working just with the information in that particular I row. And then J plus plus. This ends the J, need my comment, ends J for loop, which controls each column in the current row. From there, now something else that's important, because this is controlling two different things, these two letters need to be different, or they could be words or phrases or whatever. Can't be phrases unless there's no spaces, but that's stupid. So then we're going to call to numbers. We need to call to the row first and the column second. So numbers of I and J equals, and then we're just going to keep it simple. We'll just make it equal to I plus J. So that right there is the very basic fundamentals of how to write to a multi-dimensional array. We still need to see the result, so I need to show you about printing. I'm going to do that in a separate for loop. Once again, all we're doing, I'm going to repeat this, for n I equals 0, I is less than numbers.length, I plus plus, whoops, this ends I for loop, which controls each row for int j equals 0. J is less than numbers of I, because I controls the row, working in that row, dot length, J plus plus. Here is where the difference, after I do ends J for loop, which controls each column in the current row. You don't have to type the whole thing. I'm doing that for your sanity. This is where the difference between print and print line really come into play, because now we want to make sure when we're printing it that we print it out in a table manner. So this is going to just be system.out.print, so it can print across numbers of I and J. But to make sure that each row gets entered, we have to put a system.out.print line that is blank down below. So this should just take I plus J and put it into an array. But you can see it did properly, because J becomes 1, so it ends 8, 9, 10. It's a little choppy, so we can then, of course, manipulate that by go ahead and adding in plus, I'm going to just do a tab. That should clean it up. Yeah, that cleaned it up quite a little bit, because it tabbed it over to the next spot perfectly. So that'll help us keep our array pretty clean. That's the basics behind a multi-dimensional array. And we're going to look at just some of the different things you can do with it, but it's all pretty much the same, except instead of dealing with one dimension, 2 dimensions.